So we start out each commemoration with a candle lighting, and tonight, with the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, we would like to invite all Holocaust survivors that are in the room and our one liberator that is in the room to please come up and light a candle. I'm sorry if it takes a little while, it's a little crowded, but to be in the presence of these individuals.
Hey, give this to Dad and ask him if he wants to go up.
Once again, any Holocaust survivors or any other liberators, please come up to light a candle.
Jeff, did you want to get out?
I can't. I'm not going to do it. Two people that feel
Okay.
just be pestering. I just put my long lens on this.
Of the liberation of Auschwitz, we light this candle in memory of the 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust and the millions of other victims of Nazi persecution. We also light this candle in honor of the rescuers and liberators who did everything they could to preserve life and humanity in the face of evil. Finally, we light this candle in recognition of the survivors who endured cruelty beyond imagination, yet found in the resilience to carry on. Today and always, we remember.
I was just being interviewed outside in the midst of the exhibit, and I was asked for my reactions. And the first thing I said was, I looked at the faces of those Eastern European peasants, and they were all very familiar to me, because as a child, when I was growing up, and when the Holocaust was becoming a reality, it was those people who spewed hatred at me, who called me all sorts of names, dirty Jew, whatever. And it was painful. When I had to put on a yellow star, which branded me as a Jew, and went out in the street and kids beat me up, that was even more difficult to deal with. Bottom line is, I survived. I was very fortunate my immediate family survived. We were scattered in concentration camps and mountains and all over the place, but we survived. But I question why. Why do people have to do this to other people? Why that hatred? What have we or other people done to deserve that? Whether it was the Jewish people, 6 million of us, whether it were the people in various other genocides that took place. Why? Why hate? Why hate? Why not accept? And what we do here is we go to schools and we talk to students, and what we tell them and what we emphasize is you cannot allow yourself to hate. If you don't like someone, walk away from them. But don't spew evil or evil thoughts at them. Because eventually, someone may turn around and do that to you too. This is what we have to learn to understand as human beings. If it's not today, if it's not us today, it's going to be someone else tomorrow. Or we too. I don't ever want to live through a Holocaust again. I don't want my grandchildren to live through a Holocaust again. No matter what name it may have, and no matter what excuses people come up with. Hate is something that should not exist. Although that's an altruistic wish, because it's always been part of humanity. But we are now a more civilized people, perhaps. But we have to learn to understand that it does not do any good. Mm-hmm. Hating makes you an angry human being. The moment you become an angry human being, you can no longer be a happy human being. Why not be happy? And that's what we try to do at the museum. Teach, educate, starting with young people. They're receptive. They're receptive. They want to hear stories. They want to hear survival stories. They want to hear how some people betrayed you and how other people helped you. Within the same village. It happened to me. A German officer told us, he came to warn us, to tell us to leave the village because the villagers have turned us in. How do you reconcile that? The good and the evil. It's hard to understand. But there are still good people, no matter where, among people who are not as good or ignorant. And that's what we have to bear in mind, and that's what we have to teach the young people. Look at the person next to you and say, I like him, I like her. Let's be friends. It's easier to be friends than enemies. Unfortunately, in many cases, adults teach the kids to hate. And I don't know how to put an end to that. But if you look at those pictures outside, the ditches and the dead bodies and the faces of those people, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But all I know is that I'm going to work as long as I can to change people's minds. And that's what we all need to do. Whether they are yellow or black or Jewish or whatever, they're all human beings. And that's what we have to learn first. And human beings have feelings. And they hurt when somebody pricks them with a needle or a knife. We all have a responsibility. And I hope that through exhibits like these, it will sink in. Thank you very much for
So the first thing I want to do is say thank you first to Andrea for pulling together this commemoration on a night that is so meaningful, not only to our community, but to the world at large. And really, I must thank Paul for his words and for being an inspiration every day. As Andrea said, Paul and Trudy and Alan and so many of the other survivors that we work with in the classrooms and at Cafe Europa, who've written books like our friend Marlite, and many others like Edith, who come every day to tell their stories and support the work here at the museum. It means a great deal to us to be able to do this work, to do it on behalf of our local survivors and for all of the students, teachers, and community members that we serve each year. Last year was our biggest year ever. We reached just over 20,000 individuals. And now, as you see, we're opening our new center, our new museum here at RCC. We know we're going to expand that reach, and it's only through your support, your help, and the great support of the college. So we're very grateful to each of you for being here tonight. Now, I know a lot of us in these days leading up to today, the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, have been watching and reading the news from the commemorations in Jerusalem and today in Auschwitz. So I'll keep my remarks brief because really we want to encourage you to take the time tonight to preview the new exhibit we have on display, the Holocaust by Bullets, and to see the exhibit that we've curated here, Keepers of the Past, which showcases some of the most amazing pieces from our archival collections here at the museum. We want to take the time to welcome you into this space. You can get familiar with it. And then we want to leave time so that you can grab one of us, grab Andrea, grab myself, talk to one of our many docents and volunteers who are here tonight. We want to welcome you back while we have this exhibit through June. And then after we open with our new permanent exhibit in the fall, we want you to know that this is your home for education. This is your place to come, to commemorate, to remember, and to work for a better tomorrow. Because that's really what this work is all about. As Paul said, none of us has all of the answers to solve these problems, but part of what we want to do tonight, on nights like this, when we have the opportunity to come together and to remember, and to think very critically about the history that took place on this day 75 years ago, we want to think about what it means today. This place, like I said, is truly a labor of love, right? We're being built here to serve, right? Not only the wonderful faculty and students of RCC, but our communities at large. And though we're not quite finished with the construction just yet, as you can see, we're very proud to mark this significant day here together. It seems really appropriate, too, I think, that our physical space is a work in progress, just as our work together, learning and carrying on the lessons and the legacies of the Holocaust also is a work in progress. So what does today mean to us? 75 years ago, the Soviet army marched into the Auschwitz camp complex and liberated the approximately 7,000 prisoners who remained there. Over 1.3 million people in total were deported to Auschwitz, 1.1 million of whom were murdered. That leaves more than 60,000 prisoners who had been sent on death marches westward from the camp as the Soviets approached, and thousands more who were murdered in the Nazis' final frenzied days operating the camp. We have all seen the pictures and the video footage taken by the Soviets as they liberated the camp. The unthinkable piles of victims' corpses, the inhumane conditions of the barracks, and finally, the hopeful faces of those who had survived long enough to see freedom once again. These images are forever scarred into our minds as evidence of man's capacity for inhumanity, the greatest crime imaginable, genocide. To allay these dark thoughts, we can turn to our knowledge and memory of the liberators, not only the Soviets, but all the Allied forces and partisans who fought valiantly against fascist ideologies of hatred and persevered to victory in May of 1945. We can also turn to our memory of the rescuers, the righteous among nations, and consider their extraordinary bravery in risking their lives to save those who had no other hope of salvation. These stories remind us of moral courage and our capacity to do what is right in the face even of extreme danger and violence. We hold the liberators, the partisans, the rescuers, and the righteous up as models for how we ought to live our lives. But today, 75 years after the liberation of Auschwitz, what are we, each of us, doing every day to keep present the lessons and legacies of the Holocaust? We mark this day with commemorations, political speeches, and perhaps a note in our students' history classes at school. We say never again, and we mean it with all our hearts. But what are we doing to ensure it practically? No matter our strengths or backgrounds, there are 3 concrete actions we want to offer tonight that we, each of us, can take every day to build a more peaceful future for our world, starting right in our own homes and communities. First is to educate ourselves on the histories of violence and their relevance today. This is a tough task. I know I'm asking a lot of each of us, but it is so crucial that we understand the past in order to make thoughtful comparisons to where we find ourselves today. And make no mistake about it, we have all seen the news from Muncie, from Jersey City, from Brooklyn, Pittsburgh, Poway, and so on. We cannot solve the problems of anti-Semitism, of racism, of sexism, and ableism without knowing how these systems of hatred and discrimination developed in our country and around the world. Today, it is easier than ever to educate ourselves on these issues and to join organizations that are actively working to eliminate hate through education, organizations very like this museum. The second thing we can do is to put our resources to work in action and in advocacy. No matter what cause calls to your heart, it is essential that we give of our time, our skills, or our material means. We are social creatures based in community and connected to each other in so many ways. As my dear friend Alan Moskin often paraphrases Maya Angelou, we are more alike than different. And to strengthen those ties and to build resilience against hatred, we must actively work and advocate for organizations that spread goodwill, that promote social justice, and who care for those in need. This is a basic contract of our humanity. We must contribute to a greater good than our own. We have seen what happens when we focus only on the benefit of ourselves or those who are like us. The final thing we can do is to practice more kindness and empathy in our daily lives. The United States Ambassador to the United Nations from 2013 to 2017, Samantha Power, wrote, "Every day, almost all of us find ourselves weighing whether we can or should do something to help others. We decide on issues large and small, whether we'll be bystanders or upstanders." Now for some, this message might seem rather trite, but each of us has known the power of a small act of kindness born of someone else's empathy for us. When we cultivate the practice of being aware of those around us, of considering their security, their needs, and their happiness, we begin to understand our power to impact positive change from the very smallest scale to the very largest. Today, we grapple with the enormous scale of the Holocaust and its legacy 75 years after liberation. There is much we can do to honor the memory of the victims, the survivors, and the liberators. So I invite you to join me in these 3 steps, to continue educating ourselves, to serve our world when and where we can, and to act with more kindness and more empathy. Not everything that we do in this course of action will be a matter of life or death. Sometimes it might be, and we don't even know. But if in the memory of liberation there are any lessons for us, one would certainly be to start acting long before things get to the point of genocide. As Carl Jasper said, and as you can see in the Keepers of the Past exhibit just behind the classroom, that which has happened is a warning. It was possible for this to happen, and it remains possible for this to happen again. As we close our program and offer time for you to visit the new special exhibit, The Holocaust by Bullets, I do want to give just a brief introduction. This exhibit is based on the work of Father Patrick Dubois, a Catholic French priest who brings to light the history of the Holocaust in Eastern Europe before the opening of the death camps. At least 1/3 of the total victims of the Holocaust, approximately 2 million people, were murdered by German special forces and local collaborators in mass shooting operations. For decades, this history was obscured by closed Soviet archives and witnesses who were fearful to speak about what they saw. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, this history has slowly been revealed, but it remains overshadowed by the memory of the Holocaust's understandably horrific camp system. Today, this exhibit helps preserve memory of communities swallowed whole by the Nazi machinery of genocide in brutal face-to-face operations. We invite you to learn about this hidden history of the Holocaust based on the testimony of witnesses who were children and young adults during the time of the events. From their firsthand knowledge, we can preserve the memory of this early phase of the Holocaust and learn about why the history of genocide has such relevance for our world all around. We hope you will take time this evening to visit the exhibit to reflect on this history, especially today of all days, International Holocaust Remembrance Day. This exhibit will be with us through June 12th, at which time we'll close the museum down one final time while we have our new permanent exhibit installed, and will reopen to the public again this fall with a very meaningful and powerful exhibit on the Holocaust and its relevance today for our community. Please do not hesitate to reach out tonight, tomorrow, later this week, and any time in the future when you want to draw upon the resources that are available for you here at the Holocaust Museum. We're a community resource here to serve you, to serve your schools, to serve your civic organizations, and your houses of worship. Please be in touch and come back. We're doing work here that really requires your support. We're grateful to have it tonight. We're grateful to have it always. Thank you.
See the Governor Cuomo, off to Auschwitz. He was leaving for the 75th anniversary to Auschwitz, and he asked if we would come down for a press conference. And we so graciously did, and he was just so incredible. So I just want to do a tremendous shout out to Paul Adler. I think you're in the other room over there. Paul paved the way for us to be on this campus at RCC, and Paul is paving the way for us in the state of New York. He is up at Cuomo advocating for this museum for #1 security. And I don't know if you're aware of this, Paul, but there is unmarked security here tonight sent specifically by Governor Cuomo. So we have some other opportunities that are up in the governor's office that Paul has put up in front of him. And we're hoping that every student, every adult that wants to visit a Holocaust museum has the opportunity to. And I think our governor is going to pave the way for that. So, in closing, I'd like to thank you all for your support of this museum. It's been a labor of love for every single person that has had something to do with it. This is your museum, this is the community's museum, and far beyond. Please take advantage, get involved, take a walk around, and thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, after the performance on
Well, unfortunately, we keep forgetting that human beings are capable of unimaginable acts of cruelty and violence, and it's important for us to constantly remind ourselves of, unfortunately, what we are capable of, so that, God willing, it doesn't happen to us all again.
Well, at its height, yeah, it was an empire. That's when, what was his name?
Don't break it.
It's hard.
Drop it.
Sergeant Moskin, how are you?
Good to see you. Were you here before?
I was here before. I'm a young guy. I was actually calling Mr. Rubenstein to see if we can do a FaceTime, FaceTime. In this room, actually, we said.